Are you wondering how you can learn more about food? Well, you're in the right place. This is the Chakula podcast, brought to you by the Root to Food Initiative, a show that celebrates authentic Kenyan dishes and serves you hot conversations about food in Kenya from an economic, social and political lens. Sema nasi kwenye social media at Root to Food on Instagram, at Root to Food on Twitter, and Root to Food on Facebook. And now, here's your host, Felistas Mwalia.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chakula podcast. Today, I'm joined by Sylvia Kuria, who's a passionate farmer and who does her things differently. Probably, Sylvia, you can start us off by telling us who Sylvia is and what do you do that is different from the other farmers. Yeah, and karibu to the studio.
Thank you very much. I'm Sylvia Kuria and I'm an organic farmer. I've been practicing organic for about more than 10 years actually. So I basically just started by growing my own food for my own home consumption. So we had a kitchen garden. And with time, it grew, and now we are able to we are like middle-scale organic farmers. But then I farm differently, as you said, because I farm in a way that is sustainable. We don't use any chemical inputs in our farming systems. You know, we practice agroecology, different aspects of agroecology, like agroforestry. We take good care of our soil. We do composting, we do cover cropping, water harvesting. So basically, the kind of farming I practice is one that is sustainable.
Yeah.
And I'm also very, very passionate about training. So I love my farming, but I'm passionate about training. So we train farmers. We're trying to set up our farms as demonstration plots where farmers can come and learn how to do organic, agroecology, sustainable farming. Nowadays there are so many terminologies.
Yeah.
And then I also train farmers out of the farm on how they can be able to start off their own gardens. Finally, we actually have an outlet.
Yeah.
And our brand name, Sylvia's Basket, where we sell safe organic produce.
Karibu sana. You've mentioned that you have an outlet, Sylvia's Basket. Probably you can let us know how is the uptake of organic food in Kenya.
Okay, so when I started in 2016, actually started selling my produce earlier than 2016. But then I officially registered the company in 2016. And I wanted to go more commercial and, just have proper systems. So I started by selling produce from my farm to my friends. So my friends were my first customers. So they used to, call and say, anything you have extra, just bring to us in the city. So our farms are in Limuru and Memahio. So, of course, those are towns that are very close to Nairobi City. So we'd basically just harvest in the morning and then bring our surplus produce to friends. And then I got to a point whereby I even had more produce than I could sell to homes.
Yeah.
And I had to start selling to middlemen or the brokers. It was very discouraging because they buy our very nice produce at, like that cheap rates.
Yeah.
And that's when in 2019 we decided to start an outlet.
Yeah.
To sell our produce. And when we started off, to answer your question, the uptake was not too high because it's people who didn't know us. It just takes time like any other business to build a brand and for people to know who you are. But then now, during COVID came as a savior for us because now people were more, number one, people were at home.
Yeah.
So they were on their phones and they were, very active on social media platforms. So we just made sure that our pages were very active. And then number two, people were more conscious because we are being told to have a good, healthy diet. And people who are, ditching, food that wasn't safe for them or stuff that was processed and looking for more natural foods. So that really helped us that, we got a lot of customers. In fact, I always say during COVID, because COVID started in March.
Yeah.
So January, we're doing maybe 20 baskets a week. By April, we're doing more than 100 baskets, which is like 300% growth.
Yeah.
And, from then on, it's just been, a constant growth. Of course, some people, fell off the bandwagon after they felt COVID is not too serious.
Yeah.
But then generally, we are still having a good uptick and people are very curious, to know what is organic. Why should I eat it?
Yeah. Sylvia, probably to take you back, why did you decide doing things differently? Why did you decide to go the organic way?
Okay, I decided to grow seafood because when we moved to Limuru, by the way, I was born and bred in the city. I'm 100% city girl. And, maybe just to make it a bit interesting, when we first moved to Limuru, I mean, my family was not very inspired that I can become a farmer.
Yeah.
Because I could not even tell the difference between a weed beans. I didn't know the difference between coriander, which is dania, and carrots. As in, I was a blonde, like 100%. But I was 100% committed to growing safe food for my young children. So by then I had a small child. And when I started doing my little garden, I got some pests. And I asked, okay, now what do I do? And everyone told me, so you just take a sample of the leaf that has the pest, and you'll be told which chemical to spray. And in my mind, I thought, this can't be right. This, it doesn't sound right that I'm going to spray a chemical. But then now I did it maybe for about a year or less. No, I think I only sprayed like once or twice, to be honest. And I was like, this is not sustainable. I can't do this anymore. And I researched. I didn't even know what organic was.
Yeah.
So I researched growing food without chemicals. And what came up was organic.
And how did you realize that it's not working?
Because I just, I'm one of those who love to read. So not many people read the labels. Of stuff, but I read labels of everything. Even I don't buy food even from a store or a supermarket without knowing what I'm ingesting. So when I read the labels, first, one thing I always say as a policy, if I can't pronounce what's getting into my body, I just don't buy it. Yeah, because most likely it can't be good for me. So I couldn't pronounce all those chemicals. And then they said that they have something called a harvest interval. So basically, if you spray the chemicals, you have to wait for about maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, depending on the strength of the chemical before you can be able to ingest it. And I asked questions, why should I wait 2 weeks before I can eat my own food?
Yeah.
And that's when without anyone telling me much, I just figured out this must be poison and can't be good for my young family. And I just stopped using it. And then now, over time now, I went into reading, to find out the effects of these chemicals. And and even just being very close to food. And, you had an amazing report, which is a white paper report on the pesticide use in Kenya. I still refer to it until today.
Oh.
It's like one of my reference.
Yeah.
I'm always reading to educate people and myself. So I'm just a reader. I just want to know what's getting to my body. And I just thought it can't be good for me. So I just stopped using it. Yeah.
Quite inspiring.
Yeah.
Sylvia, you also mentioned that at the beginning, the uptake was not so good.
Yeah.
Is that linked with the fact that most Kenyans associate organic farming to the rich?
Basically what we did, we just aped everything that was happening in the West. So we just did a copy-paste because, in the West, organic is expensive. It's a niche product.
Yeah.
And without even asking any questions, why is it expensive in the West?
Yeah.
And, I actually took my time even listening to like TED Talks, as in I just go online and I just ask, why is organic more expensive?
Yeah.
And one of the things I listened to one of the TED Talks, they actually said organic is expensive because of the supply and demand, number one. Like in the West, the supply is little, but the demand is very high. And then also you find in the West, most organic farmers are really, charged very high costs to have their products certified. Certification can be such a huge headache and extremely expensive.
Yeah.
So you find farmers to be able to recoup their costs because, sometimes their produce is not too high, then they make it higher.
Yeah.
So they can be able just to survive in the market.
How about here in Kenya?
In Kenya, it's not that expensive.
But if you just go somewhere, organic food, you'll see the reaction.
In fact, to be honest, those who are listening to me and my followers on Instagram and Facebook and all the social media platforms, many of them don't buy from me because they just assume I'm expensive. They're like, she says organic, she's just doing a good job. It's wonderful for the world, for the environment and everything, but I would never buy organic. And it's interesting because when we put a high markup to organic, we're trying to say that it's for the rich and that safe food should not be for everybody, which is fundamentally wrong. Because if you think about, because if you think about, just let's go back to the SDGs.
Yeah.
I think SDG 3 says good health and well-being for all. So what does that mean? That everyone deserves to have good health. Everyone deserves to have safe food.
Yeah.
So in Kenya, I don't think organic has to be made into a niche product.
Yeah.
Because one, we are in a country whereby, we can grow food all year round. In the West, you have the summers and the very harsh winters where food can't grow all year round.
Yeah.
So we grow food all year round.
Yeah.
And also, we don't have extreme weather. So we actually have chances to actually get group certification, which makes organic farmers be able to access certification at very, very low rates. So it's not very high.
Sylvia, probably just to cut you short, if I buy a tomato today from a kawaida mama mboga here, and if I buy a tomato from either Sylvia's Basket or from the organic farmers market, I believe the price is slightly different, and yet this other tomato, the farmer used a lot of chemicals. Probably it was capital intensive compared to organic farming. Why the difference?
Okay, two things. One, as I said, we've just basically aped what was happening in the West. So we just assumed that once you do organic, it must be expensive. And I work with farmers, and I'm really trying to work on the farmers and telling them, if you make your produce, because I like my farms are not able to provide enough food, for the shop. So I have to work with other farmers. And one thing I keep telling them, if you make your food expensive and not accessible, it makes no sense because you won't sell as much. So with my farmers, by the way, we have really tried. At Sylvia's Basket, let me speak for Sylvia's Basket. We have really tried to make the prices very fair and closer to conventional, because we realize that, in this state of the economy, we are all very price sensitive. We don't want to spend too much money on food. We just want to get good food. But we don't want to spend too much on it. So we try to make it affordable. I still would agree with you that the price might be slightly higher, mainly because we are still having to deal with few farmers. So we are still having to grapple with demand and supply. So I don't have too many farmers, and they feel like since I've struggled to make my tomato organic, then I need to get a small premium over it, which is not really too much of a problem as long as you don't make it too high. And then again, you have to ask yourself, what is the cost to your health? What's your cost to your health? Like, are you going to skimp on your health today and pay the doctors tomorrow? Or are you willing to pay something slightly higher for good health today and have a good health, for the rest of your life? So, and at times, we have to think about the cost of things. Let me give you a quick example. Even as we do marketing and talking about our food, it's easy for us to go to, Nairobi is nice and lively. So we have lots of restaurants. So if you go to a restaurant and you ask for a plate of plantains, you'll be given a little plate for 400 shillings of plantains.
And I won't question
You won't question it. You won't question it. But when I tell you that I'm selling you my plantains for 220 a kg, it sounds expensive. So it's just also a mental. How do we cost food? How do we cost good food for us? We are able to buy shoes. We buy shoes worth thousands of shillings, and clothes. At the heart of you're scrolling your Instagram, you see a nice shoe and you already buy. You don't even ask questions
but
for quality. But when it comes to quality food, you don't want to spend any money on it.
But according to you, is it fair to put a premium on good food?
I don't think it should be a very high premium, to be honest. I don't think it's fair because everyone deserves good food. Healthy food is a fundamental human right. That is a human right and everyone should be able to access it. But I'm just trying to say, the way our market is right now, we are trying very hard at Sylvia's Basket, to make our prices very competitive and comparable to conventional, so we can be able to catch people from the other, camp. Where, we are trying to spread our fishing net and telling people, you can afford it. And one of the things we've tried to do is to make sure that the regular food, especially our African indigenous vegetables, local food that is seasonal, we are actually very fair. Our prices are very fair. And that's why, and when we make our prices that way, I may not be able to speak for other organic markets, but when we make our prices that way, we're actually passing on a statement to say that this food is for everybody.
Sylvia, do you get any support, or do organic farmers get support from the government?
No. So we don't get any support from the government.
Can that be a factor as to why organic food is also expensive?
In a way, but the truth is, when you start producing organic, for the first 5 years, I can say it can be very costly because you have to almost change the whole system of your farm. So you basically have to do more work that is more like drudgery, like you have to make compost, you have to work on your soil, you have to do cover cropping. A bit of that work can be very hectic. When you try to compare that, you imagine I have to go and collect all the waste on my farm from my kitchen, put in a compost pit, wait for it to get ready in 8 to 12 weeks, and then plant, versus someone who uses a synthetic input, which you just put on a spoon and put in the soil. So people are like, why do I have to go through all this headache and hassle? And that's why it can be a bit expensive as you're starting to set up the systems at the beginning. But then I always say from the 5th to 6th year, it becomes comes almost like clockwork because you have worked on the ecosystem, you have a good biodiversity, you've worked on your soils, and now it's time for Mother Nature to start giving. So she gives and she never stops giving as long as you take care of her. But the first few years can be difficult. And in those years, we get no support from the government. We get no support from anyone, to be honest. I mean, you just have to have the willpower. And you have to be one who is very committed to actually produce safe food and someone who really cares for the environment to be able to actually go through the first few years that are extremely difficult.
Yeah, with the fact that you don't really get support from the government, from a Kenyan perspective, what is the future of an organic farmer? What is the future of organic food?
In my opinion, I think organic is the only, or agroecology, we have many terminologies. We have organic, we have agroecology, sustainable agriculture.
Maybe to clarify, is organic farming part of is it like agroecology? Is it like the whole, how do I say it? Is it a practice under agroecology?
Yes, because agroecology has got different principles. In fact, when you go online, you'll see that it has about 10 principles from FAO. I can't remember all of them, but something to do with diversity, with synergies, recycling, agroforestry, planting of trees, soil, taking good care of your soil, water harvesting. And I can say that it's true that there's some farmers who practice agroecology but still use synthetic inputs. We have to accept that. But it's still not too bad because at least they are, working on the environment and just being really careful about how they do their farming systems. But then when it comes to organic is you don't use any synthetic inputs. So for myself, by the way, before I knew about all these terminologies, I just used to know that I'm an organic farmer. But now when you actually look at my farm, if you visit and see how we do our practices, I'm actually practicing agroecology, I practice permaculture, I'm practicing biointensive agriculture, I'm practicing like regenerative agriculture, just because of how we've actually done our practices. But then the future, in my opinion, for organic or agroecology or sustainable agriculture is that we don't have a choice. That's just what I feel. I just feel farmers do not have a choice moving on. Just go around, talk to farmers, and every one of them are going to tell you that, the produce we're making a few years ago, we are not making that produce anymore. The produce has really reduced.
Or for organic farmers?
No, for general. For conventional farmers. They're like 10, 20 years ago, we had a lot of produce. And right now the produce has come down considerably. So, they're asking us, what is the solution? What can I do about it? And tell them, agroecology, organic is the only way for you to be able to rebuild your soils, to be able to retain water in the soil, to be able to get a good harvest. Which farmer doesn't want to get a good harvest and retain water and be able to survive like what you're going through, like a semi-drought right now? They all want to be able to survive such seasons. And the only way they can be able to survive those seasons is by using sustainable practices. So for me, the future is organic. We don't have a choice.
Sylvia, as an organic farmer, business person, and a consumer, what changes have you put in place to make organic food easily accessible?
One thing we have done is, one, as I have mentioned from before, that we have actually tried to make the food affordable. So we've tried to make it affordable because affordability is the first step into accessibility. And then number two, we've also tried to have our shop in a place whereby is accessible to many people. So we're on Ngong Road in Nairobi. And beyond that, even not just location, we're very active online. So people can be able to find us at Sylvia's Basket on Instagram and Facebook. One way of getting to the consumers is by, being active on social media platforms, because many of us are spending a lot of time on our phones and computers, and that's how we're able to actually make it accessible. And then I'm also trying to be consistent, because the other thing about accessibility is being consistent and reliable. So just, upping our game on training farmers, especially small-scale farmers, and being able to support them to get their produce to, to transition to organic, but also get their produce to the market. Because you find we have many wonderful organic small-scale farmers, but they're not able to access the markets. And how have we done that? We're working with logistics partners who are able to make sure that the farmers, once you just drop your package at our partners who support us with logistics, the package comes all the way to the shop. Because that's normally a very, very big hassle for many farmers, because they have the produce, but they can't access the markets. And the biggest, problem is logistics. How do I package? How do I put it in a bus? Will it get there in good condition? So for us, we have a very reliable logistics partner who is able to get us produce from all over the country and bring it here. So that also helps to increase accessibility of the produce.
We've talked so much about youth training farmers, how you're trying to demystify the myth that organic food is expensive, and we've not talked so much about consumers and what consumers should do. I think one thing you can just let us know you can just let the listeners know what consumers should do, and basically what consumers should do to contribute to the organic movement.
One thing about the consumers, I mean, it sounds a very easy solution, which is basically the more you buy organic produce from farmers, the more you encourage these farmers to grow safe produce. So if consumers bought more food from organic markets, they would encourage farmers to grow more organic produce, and in turn the produce would be more accessible. But that sounds very easy, it's a very easy thing, know. But one thing I want to really challenge consumers is, do you ever think about what you're putting in your mouth? Do you ever think what you're feeding your family? Do you ask questions? Where does this food come from? How was it grown? Do I know whether it's safe for me or not? Do I want to know where it has come from? Or are we just putting our heads in the sand, not wanting to know anything? You're like, as long as I'm eating this food and I'm eating my vegetables, who cares where they came from? Who cares how they were grown? So I want consumers to be very powerful, because when you think about the whole system of farming, even we had a debate with some of my colleagues and we're asking, who is more powerful? Is it the farmers or is it the consumers? Do you know the consumers are the ones who are very powerful? Because right now, I'm sorry to break this down to you, the reason you have very nice, beautiful, shiny vegetables that are full of chemicals is because that's what consumers want. Consumers want something that looks nice, it's shiny, it's bright. And I'm not saying organic should not have good quality. We sell very good quality produce. It's organic, but it's quality. But what I'm just saying is, since consumers want this nice, brightly colored stuff, farmers are going to do everything to give that to you. If it means having to spray their tomatoes, which they do every single weeks for 5 months before it gets to your plate, they will do it. So that you get the wonderful tomato that you wanted and you asked for. And the middlemen are the ones who normally go around the farmers and they tell the farmers, this doesn't look good enough, spray this, spray that. I'm coming back after 1 week. The middlemen are now the ones advising the farmers on which pesticides to use and which are the best and the harshest and the quickest that work very well. So they tell the farmers. It happened to me before. I was trying to sell some broccoli and they had a bit of aphids, which in my opinion was not too bad, because you just basically have to dip the broccoli in salty water. The aphids will swim away and you can continue with your meal. But for them, they don't want to see a single insect. And they told me, spray 1, 2, 3 things. We're coming back after 1 week. The pests or the doodles will be gone and we can come and buy it from you. Because they say, if I sell anything with the pests, or with doodles or with little critters here and there, the consumers will refuse. So you see how powerful consumers are. So I'm sorry to say, but consumers, you're getting what you deserve because you want to have that nice food that's pesticide laden, full of poison. But if consumers today were to say, no, you go to your mama mboga, because not every consumer who's listening to us is able to access organic produce or safe produce. But if you start asking questions to your mama mboga, where do you get your vegetables from? Do you know the farmer? How do they grow the food?
Such questions,
such questions will start making the local ladies or the retailers who are selling start asking those questions. And they start wondering, no. I need to start getting farmers who are not spraying. So they'll now start telling the farmers, do you know my customers don't want food that is sprayed with chemicals? And that's how we're going to change the whole mindset, so that consumers need to know you are very powerful. Start asking the questions, start inquiring, start demanding that the food I'm eating should be good for me, it should be good for my family. Start even in your little capacity. If you know something, like even the other day, just a quick example, I'd gone to my friend's farm and she's starting to set up, and these guys were wanting to spray a glyphosate. Like glyphosates are herbicides, which are terrible anyway. Just Google glyphosate, you will learn a lot about it online. And they were going to spray some glyphosates, and I screamed, literally screaming. I'm like, no, you cannot do that, But the farmer was like, it's effective, it works very well. We're going to spray a few bottles. And what we did, we actually asked, because my friend was farming with a friend, and she called a friend in such horror. He's like, do you know about glyphosates? He was like, what is that? And this is someone who is educated, who has a really good job and has got a lot of exposure. Working in Nairobi, has no idea what is glyphosate. So I think for me, if we're able to get the message out, read. I told you guys earlier, read all the ingredients that are in your food. When you go to the supermarket, read all the ingredients. If you can't pronounce it, shove it. Don't eat it. The same thing, if you want to start farming and you're using inputs, read what's on that. We are educated, we can read, we have research, we have all the tools, we have Google, we have everything to give us all the information. So read. So as consumers, be well read. Know, ask questions, demand. And you're going to change the whole scene of food. Yeah.
Sylvia, but why is conventional cheaper?
So it's a very good question. In fact, I like on my Twitter handle, which is Kuria_Sylvia, I did a poster maybe a few weeks ago, and it got so much response about why is it organic farmers are made to sign a bunch of so many papers, pay so much money to prove that their food is safe. And yet,
that applies here in Kenya?
In a way, like especially if you're doing it for export, it's a very long, rigorous process. And yet, conventional farmers don't have to account for anything. They don't account for anything. We don't know what they're spraying. And yet what they're using is actually very, very, many times, not all, but many times, the synthetic inputs are very bad for the environment and very bad for our health. And yet conventional farmers are not held accountable in any way.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, conventional produce should actually be more expensive
because of the cost.
Yes, because of the cost to our health and the cost to the environment. So conventional should actually cost more than organic. But because we're in a world where things are upside down and things are warped, and we don't read and we don't research and we don't speak and we don't have strong advocates. We don't have strong advocates. So it's warped. So you find organic is more expensive, and yet conventional should be the ones, in my opinion, if you're using synthetic inputs, you need to be able to write down for me all the inputs you have used, when you use them, how you use them. Because what I feel is that we pay cheap for conventional now, but we pay very dearly much later.
But how comes we don't have mama mbogas, like on the streets, how we have mama mbogas selling conventional food on the streets? Why don't we have the same applying for organic food?
I think the reason why mama mbogas may not really have a lot of organic produce is because they don't have access to it. They don't know where to get it. But, like for me, I mentioned we have a farm in Limuru, and I was selling my produce to the mama mbogas in Limuru market, and they loved my produce, totally loved it. It's only that sometimes I don't have enough to give them. But they were very, very happy with my produce, and they would keep calling me every week, bring me back the lettuce, my customers are happy, my customers really want it. But I find the reason why they're not doing it is because they don't have access, they don't know where to get it. And organic farmers, we are few, and we are few and really spaced out. So we don't have enough produce that we could give to mama mbogas. But if we have a strong advocacy and work with farmers and give farmers more training on agroecology and sustainable agriculture, then we'll be able to have more people to convert, to grow safe food. And that way, the ripple effect will be amazing. More people will be able to access organic food, and it's going to be affordable. But to answer that part, conventional needs to be more expensive than organic, if you ask me.
Sylvia, why is organic food expensive?
As I mentioned earlier, we did a copy-paste from the West. So are you asking why it's expensive in Kenya?
Yeah, why it's expensive in Kenya. And you've also mentioned the fact that you have farmers, you work with farmers, but for them to get market, it's also a problem.
Okay, let's agree that the first few years of doing organic can be costly and difficult. So you find farmers would normally have to put a small premium because, as I said, imagine having to make your compost versus using a spoon of synthetic fertilizer. One will cost much more and take more time. But the fact is, over time, it actually becomes cheaper. Like right now, if I compare my farming with a conventional farmer, my inputs are like almost 70% less. I've actually compared it with conventional farmers. My inputs, because I've done it for a number of years, so my inputs are way, way less than conventional farmers. But also, let's also agree that when the narrative of organic was being introduced into Kenya as a commercial business, of course we're all doing organic, like our grandparents and long time ago, it was all organic. But when the narrative of making it commercial was being introduced in Kenya, the NGOs and the trainers who actually came into the training actually told farmers that organic has a lot of money. You can sell your stuff at a premium. So you see, the farmers knew that they have to sell at a premium because the retailers in the city are definitely selling at a premium. So why should the farmer sell at a throwaway price? And yet he knows the person he's selling to in the city is going to sell it at 3, 4, 5 times the price. So farmers became very strict. and they held onto that narrative that we have to sell our produce expensive. Even when you sit down with them and you find that their inputs are low, the inputs are almost close to nothing, especially someone who has done it for a very long time.
Yeah.
Especially like, things like fruits.
Yeah.
If you're doing organic avocados, like most of the avocados we have in Kenya are organic.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Actually, even most fruits.
Yeah. Quite a number of fruits are not very high in pesticides.
Yeah.
So you find this farmer, he's been doing avocados for maybe 15 years, but he still insists on making a markup on it. You're like, really? Is it really worth it? So I think also that narrative that started off to make organic commercial, started by telling the farmers they have to sell it at a premium. And yet it's not necessary.
Yeah.
So for us, even as we interact with farmers, we keep telling them, this food you're giving us very expensive. Who are we going to sell it to in Nairobi? Who is going to buy it anyway if it's too high? And remember, your children, your relatives are living in the city.
Yeah.
You have such good produce and they can't even afford it. So make it affordable so that more people can afford it.
Yeah.
So it's going to take some time for a mind shift, for farmers to accept that they can make it affordable, especially where it's clearly proven that the inputs are low. I believe that farmers should not make it too expensive and should work on selling volumes. And that's why we're here. That's why we're growing our retail to make sure that our retail is big and we're able to sell volumes. And once you're able to sell volumes, then it's very encouraging to the farmer to know that even if I don't have to make it too expensive, I'm also going to sell very well. But now if you're buying very small volumes, of course the farmers will have to mark up the price. So that's when again consumers come in. Remember, consumer is king. If consumers buy from farmers, you'll encourage us to grow more and the price will definitely come down.
Oh, thank you so much for the insights. We've actually come to the end of this show. And to end this show, Sylvia, if you were a fruit, what will you be and why?
I'd be a jackfruit.
Why?
Can I say fruit and vegetables? Because I love both. Okay, if I was a jackfruit, I had never eaten jackfruit anywhere else. So once I actually went to visit World Vegetable Center. I just took a bus and I went to Arusha to visit World Vegetable Center because they do a lot of good work on research on seeds and stuff like that. So I just said, let me just go and learn what they're doing there. And I was walking on the streets of Arusha with a friend of mine. I just took a friend of mine who's not even in agriculture, and we found this fruit being sold on the street, and it was a jackfruit. And jackfruit is one of the best fruits ever because you can't even tell the way they taste. It tastes a little like a mango, a little like a banana, a bit like a pineapple. It's just a wonderful, versatile fruit. I love it. I've planted some, waiting for them to come up on my farm. But yeah, I'd be a jackfruit, and if I was a vegetable, I think I'd be a beetroot.
Why?
Because beetroots are so easy to grow. Like, even if you don't have a green thumb, even if you're going to just, no matter how bad you are at farming, you can grow beetroots. And beetroots are so healthy for you, and they are so tasty. I know.
Tasty.
I know. It depends. Let me teach you how to. You come and I'm going to teach you how to cook beetroots.
Okay.
But beetroots are amazing. They are high in fiber. By the way, if you have any tummy issues, beetroots are very good for you. They are very high in fiber. They are good. And today, I actually read an article that they say beetroots actually help to lower high blood pressure. I didn't know that. But it's one of those superfoods which I feel have not been given enough clout.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make use of this podcast to let people know that beetroot is a superfood.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you so much for your insight, Sylvia. And to our listeners, thank you so much for listening in till the end of the show. Until next time, thank you.